As the eyes of the world turn to London for the Olympics, Britain has a great many strengths to put on display. Aviation policy is not one of them. When Beijing held the Olympics, it opened a new airport terminal the size of all Heathrow's terminals put together. When London stages the Olympics, flights will be diverted to Farnborough, Southend and Lydd to avoid gridlock at Heathrow. The hope is that this will prevent a national embarrassment, as if the state of London's airports were not embarrassment enough already. Heathrow is bursting at the seams, and business is already complaining that Britain is falling behind European rivals in terms of flights to the markets of the future, in Latin America, India and the Far East. In November, the government belatedly recognised the obvious truth that Britain must maintain a world-leading hub airport. It's clear to pretty much everyone, except the Liberal Democrats, that we need more capacity in the southeast, and it needs to be at one hub. Half-baked ideas, such as providing a fast link from Heathrow to Gatwick, will simply not do. But, shamefully, the Conservative Party painted itself into a corner by coming out against a third runway at Heathrow in the lead-up to the election. Many senior Tories now admit this was a disastrous mistake, while more than 30 of the new intake of Tory MPs are calling for a new runway at one of Heathrow, Gatwick or Stansted. The decision to rule out a third runway at Heathrow was dressed up in environmental garb that now looks very out of fashion. The main motive was to appeal to West London voters worried about noise. As it turned out, the issue seemed to have little impact in the election, but it's left the Conservatives with a big political problem. Even those who believe sentiment in the party can be turned around admit that it will be a long process. That's why many are warming to the idea of building a new airport in the Thames estuary. David Cameron is said to be interested, and the government has pledged to carry out a feasibility study as part of the consultation on airport policy due to start in March. There would be many attractions to such a scheme, not least the symbolism. What better demonstration could Britain make of its determination to remain in the economic Premier League? It would, in the words of Michael Heseltine, recapture the sense of pioneering grandeur of our Victorian forefathers. The Thames estuary is a much better place for an airport than Heathrow, but the cost would be eye-watering. Boris Johnson is right that it would be possible to raise private funds to build it, but it would probably need explicit government backing, and the cost of all the transport links could take the bill for the total project to £80 billion. Perhaps the biggest drawback is the delay. It would surely be possible to complete it in less than the 20 years that it took to do Heathrow's Terminal 5. But even a government determined to bulldoze the planning process could hardly match Hong Kong, which managed to build its new airport in just 6 years. Even that delay would be extremely costly for Britain. But that's not an argument for not doing it at all. Only for moving heaven and earth to do it as quickly as possible. This newspaper made the case for the third runway, but lost the argument against widespread opposition, not least from the Prime Minister. Mr. Cameron was personally responsible for blocking it. He must take personal responsibility for the consequences. If he's determined not to have a third runway, he must push ahead with the estuary alternative. The review must be used not as a way of closing down the debate, but as a springboard for action. Only Mr. Cameron can ensure that. That means it cannot be Boris's island. It must be the Prime Minister's airport.